2010, Christy Strickland's facade was shattered when she could no longer hide her struggle behind her beautiful smile. A licensed practical nurse, intelligent, respected, the world seemingly at her feet, Christy does not fit society's norms of someone whose life had spun out of control. Was she a functioning alcoholic or someone that behind closed doors could not function without alcohol? Stay tuned all the way to the end as Christy shares her brave story from rock bottom to sobriety. Christy, I'm so thrilled to have you as a special guest on my channel.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's an honor to be here. I'm a huge fan of your channel and of you. I think it's awesome what you're doing with this platform and letting people come on and share their stories. So thank you very much for having me.
I'm so humbled. You're a devoted wife, a fur baby mama, and a licensed practical nurse of 26 years, an online health coach, and you've recently just studied and passed your boards and are now a registered nurse. Congratulations, Christy. That's some awesome credentials right there, girl. I've known you for around at least 3 years now, and I have to say, from the outside looking in, you present as esteemed, accomplished, and all put together. Would I be correct in saying that your exterior far belies what for many years brewed beneath the surface?
I appreciate that. You would be very correct in saying what you see now is definitely not what I was just a few years ago.
You're a recovering alcoholic, but can you take us back to that first taste of alcohol and its impression, if any, it had on you that first time?
I believe I was about 8 years old or so. Both of my parents drank alcohol, and I snuck that first taste of one of their beers. You know, immediately I knew it was something that I liked, not an acquired taste for me. It was definitely something that I liked from the beginning. And I think if you talk to any alcoholic or addict, they'll tell you that what you get out of whatever you're doing, your drug of choice, or is pretty much what keeps you coming back.
I have to ask you, how does an 8-year-old or even a young teenager not succumb to the obvious effects of alcohol? How did you hide your drinking from your parents?
You know, when it all first started, it was basically just sneaking a drink or a beer here or there. And as I grew older, alcohol was accepted in my household. So even as a teenager, my parents kind of had the philosophy that we know you're going to drink, so drink in front of us. Not that I drank all the time in front of them, but when I became a teenager, they knew that I drank. I'm not saying they liked it, but they didn't forbid it. It was kind of like if I was too drunk to drive or something, I could call them and they would come get me or whatever.
It's definitely the safer option, so you really didn't have to hide what you were doing then.
You know, when it first starts, it's a lot of just sneaking here and there, and it's not really getting drunk to where anyone would know.
I have to ask you, at 8 years old, do you think you were drinking out of devilment? Or do you think alcohol was luring you in, getting its grips on you from that young?
No, I don't think at age 8 it was luring me in per se. I knew I liked the taste and I knew I liked how it felt. But as I got older, it was more of what it did for me. I had that liquid courage. I didn't have any inhibitions. I felt extremely confident drinking alcohol.
Definitely, it's a confidence enhancer.
Definitely as I got older, I became more and more addicted to what type of person I thought I was when I had alcohol.
Which leads me to the common debate. Do you think some people are more predisposed to drinking? Or do you think alcoholism is derived from choice?
Look, I think it's really hard for any of us to look at something that doesn't have a physical ailment and be able to put that in category of disease. However, alcoholism has a medical name. Alcohol use disorder. It's a progressive, chronic, sometimes fatal disease. It's definitely not a choice. Was not a choice for me. The more I drank, the more I had to drink, get to the same place that I was before, you know. The same with an addict. They've done many studies that show that alcoholics actually have changes to our brain when we drink alcohol. We do it even with the consequences. No stopping an addiction like that. It's a mental obsession that becomes a physical addiction. There's no choice in that.
Would it be fair to say that most experts categorize alcoholism as a disease?
The fact of the matter is that the American Medical Association, they categorize alcoholism as a disease. Speaking from someone that has the disease of addiction, I can tell you it's not a personal choice. It's not something that I chose to be. I never chose this. Almost immediately from the time where drinking became commonplace for me, fucks with the chemicals in your brain. There's no denying the fact that there are environmental factors, hereditary factors that play a part in someone with addiction. So I definitely, not only do I not think, I know that it is not a choice. It is a disease.
Would you say this goes for all addictions?
It definitely goes for all addictions. It doesn't matter your drug of choice. If you're an addict, you're an addict, period. The addiction is the same.
Do you think addicts are wired differently to others?
Oh, I definitely think that we're wired differently. You know, I still today, even after time under my belt sober, you know, I have to watch myself. It's very easy for me to become addicted to different things. Not eating, exercising, not exercising, all of these things, shopping.
So why do you think some people have addictive personalities and others don't?
I really don't know. I know that family history and environmental factors, traumatic events, different things, you know, may be a catalyst. I definitely think that an addict has no choice in the matter. And when we introduce that substance or that thing that we eventually categorize ourselves as addicted to, I think it just takes hold of us. So I'm not sure the answer to that. I'm just not that smart when it comes to why it would be that some of us are prone to addiction or not. Again, I think that there's no choice in the matter. I think it's in our makeup. You know, you can see one person who can put a drink down or put a drug down or stop doing this and have no problem. And an addict just doesn't have that choice. So no, there's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with what I'm saying.
There will always be opposing opinions to everything. In your own admission, drinking was a problem for you. Which leads me to ask, how on earth were you able to study and train to be a nurse whilst managing your drinking?
You know, I don't know. I mean, my first go around at nursing school was 26 years ago, and I was drunk a lot of the time. However, I never, time as a student or as an adult, I never went to work under the influence. It's just something that I didn't do. Hungover almost every day, never actively drinking before work or school. But I was pretty drunk in my first time in nursing school, and I guess, I don't know, I don't really believe in luck, but I guess the big man had a plan for me because I made it through and I did fine. I had a very successful career nursing for years. The obsession to drink was always there.
I believe you also suffered an injury on the job. Would you like to tell us about that?
I was working for an OBGYN, and I also was his first assistant in surgery, and I went in to do some procedures with him on a Saturday and started having extreme back pain. After I was misdiagnosed several times, it was determined that I was having spontaneous rib fracture in my back. So I was placed on permanent disability. My doctor said I could never work again, never be active again. I have extensive nerve damage in my back. That led to me not being able to work, which I'd always done. I didn't know what to do with myself, and that's really when my alcoholism spiraled completely fucking out of control. Like, there was no stopping it.
Oh girl, that's a tough one. So what was the medical solution to your back injury?
So when I had my injury, basically pain medicine was what I was given. You know, I could have had some stimulators for pain, but because of my health and other things, basically I was managed on pain medicine.
So already in the throes of alcoholism, how did you react to painkillers?
So yeah, at one point, I mean, the doctors, they were pretty sure that I had some sort of bone cancer.
That's devastating. But one has to wonder, when they were thinking that you had cancer, how on earth were they not picking up on the high levels of medication and alcohol in your bloodstream?
You know, I think when it comes to a point where they're so focused on a medical diagnosis like that, they really didn't pay much attention to how many pain pills I was taking and how much alcohol I was using. Anyone that knows an addict in addiction and full-blown addiction, we pretty much handle ourselves and spin a story people are going to believe. Not intentional, it's just to get what we need.
I can imagine. But did this make you ease off drinking at all?
There were times in my addiction, my alcoholism, that I did stop drinking. You know, I was, like I said, I was in and out of the hospital and stuff. It's not like I actually had any way to get it.
So did you admit to them that you still had a problem? What did you tell them? You had it under control.
Of course, I told them I was recovering, wasn't drinking anymore. And I remember my very last appointment that I went to at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, where I eventually received most of my care. I went to every appointment that day hammered. Never any mention of it.
That's insane.
So I think a lot of it is the way that we can manipulate when we are in full-blown addiction. It's not something to be proud of, but it is something that I've seen myself and many other people in addiction do.
So how the bloody hell did you react to the painkillers?
Oh, goodness. So, pain medicine just became another thing to add to my arsenal of things that I use to get outside of myself. I spiraled deeper and deeper into addiction. Got copious amounts of pain medicine from my doctors. There was really no permanent solution to this problem because my body wasn't healing and whatever else. So we just added pills to the mix, and it was a dangerous combination for me.
That's quite frightening to think that it was so accessible to you. Did you have to doctor shop to get it?
I never did doctor shop. My physicians, they knew from the extent of different things going on medically that I needed pain medicine to function. This was a different time back then, not like it is now where it's so regulated. The epidemic of opioid abuse is, coming more into light. So there are a lot bigger restrictions on it now. But then I got Percocet or whatever I wanted. It was at my disposal and my physician gave it to me. I never had the doctor shop.
So what sort of person were you, do you think? When you were drinking to excess, were you able to conceal your drinking for the most part? Or was it widely known Christy liked to drink?
Until later in life, I was fun. I thought I was fun. I pretty much was Christy, the life of the party kind of thing. I never managed my alcohol well at all. People knew that I liked drinking.
I think most of us on some level could relate to that. The Dutch courage, letting your hair down, the footloose, fancy-free persona. I think many of us at one point or another used alcohol for exactly that.
We always seemed to have a blast. It wasn't until later that I became a mean, angry, pitiful person when I was drinking. Drinking to excess. I drank to excess every day. So my life was pretty much miserable.
Did your friends and family have any real idea this is how life had become for you?
They didn't know the extent of they didn't know I was drinking all the time, alone. They just thought I'd like to have a good time.
Does an alcoholic ever sober up? Or did you pretty much keep topping up?
I definitely sobered up, because I didn't drink when I worked. In my earlier years of addiction, I definitely sobered up. I probably wasn't the nicest person sober, but as soon as I could get a drink, I did.
What about later on, after your back injury?
Later on, I never sobered up. Never. The minute I got out of bed, if I even slept, I had a drink in my hand. And everyone knew it. And they knew that if I didn't, I would have tremors so bad they were almost seizure-like. And I had to. My physical dependence on alcohol became so extreme. It really wasn't a choice if I wanted to drink. It was just that I had to.
So did you ever find yourself making excuses for your drinking? Blame shifting your drinking as the fault of others or your environment?
I think that's where alcohol gets misused a lot, or drugs or whatever. You have a bad day, you have a drink. That's an excuse. I went to the extreme, of course. Everything was an excuse, and I think an addict is in full-blown addiction. We are master manipulators. So definitely I could shift anything around to avoid it being my fault.
Do you think you basically projected you having the problem onto others?
Until I came to terms with the fact that I was an addict, I always knew I had a problem. But until I admitted that I was an alcoholic and an addict, that I don't think I ever took responsibility for much. It always seemed to be situational, or someone made me do that. Sure, there were times that I would do something completely fucked up. I would feel shit about it the next day. I took responsibility for that. But did I really? I think in my own mind, I always thought that there were reasons why I was this way. It wasn't my fault. This person did this, or this situation made me do this.
I imagine that must have been hard for others in your life. So how do you think your drinking really impacted them?
Oh my goodness. I put everyone in my life through hell. I think that people were probably concerned about me. I had friends that said that I couldn't be around their kids. My husband, he told me after I got sober that every day when he would come home from work, he was afraid he was going to find me dead.
That must have been a really terrible time for him to have to worry about that every single day.
I'll never be able to imagine what I put my husband through. I'll never be able to say I'm sorry enough times. You can't explain to someone else what a person living with an addict, what they go through. I mean, it absolutely made my family and my friends go through hell. And towards the end, I secluded myself. I didn't have anything to do with anybody. People probably didn't know if I was alive or dead because I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was so ashamed. What I did to those around me, never be able to change. I'll never ever be able to say I'm, sorry enough times.
Such a cruel disease. So were you actually trying to hide your drinking at that point?
I think when it got to that point, there was no hiding. And at that point, I didn't care.
So would you have considered yourself a high-functioning alcoholic or a person that couldn't function without alcohol?
I definitely was a functioning alcoholic, but towards the end, there was no functioning without it. I had no desire to, and I physically could not.
This habit must have taken its toll financially.
I can't imagine the amount of money that I wasted on alcohol. I remember at one point, my husband travels a lot for work, and I was traveling with him. They had a bar in the hotel that we were staying at, a nice hotel. My liquor bill was more than our hotel bill was. So I can't imagine the amount of money I spent on alcohol.
With so much trust and responsibility placed on you as a nurse, how did you balance these polar opposites? Was keeping up the facade increasingly more difficult?
I didn't. I think when I was still working, I didn't think the problem was such a problem. I just considered it kind of like, I worked all day, I worked hard, and I came home and drank, and that's just what people did. I had a problem with alcohol because I was always thinking about it.
Were you worried about your drinking being detected by your co-workers?
I was still functioning, I think, really well at my job, was respected, and I didn't let things slide because of alcohol, and I didn't drink at work. So, I think that it wasn't an issue, like thinking that people were gonna find me out, because at that point I didn't fully accept myself that I had such a big problem.
Did you ever feel like an imposter in your own life? Like there was this whole other side to you others just didn't know?
I felt like an imposter in my own life every single day. There's two sides to an alcoholic. One we show the world, and one that is so hidden. I was the scared, what I considered weak, no self-confidence, always questioning everything I did, didn't think I could do anything without a drink or do it well. When I think of my drinking and all the way back to like high school, I've always had a very negative self-image. That is the reason that alcohol became such an issue in my life, because I thought that I needed it. I never really felt like I was good enough.
This right there, I'm sure would resonate with so many.
I came from a wonderful house. It wasn't like I had this traumatic event. I always had felt inferior. I definitely never showed that side. People would have never have known that. Even when I would go to work and not be drinking, the obsession of it never goes away. So I think that until I got sober, there was always two Christys. One no one knew, and one everyone saw pretty much what I wanted them to see.
Was it a problem you thought you could control? You would stop after this one last drink.
For years I didn't think I had a problem, so it wasn't something I even thought about stopping. I had about 18 months that I had stopped drinking because I was sick. When I started again, I absolutely thought that I could have one and be done. I thought I was cured. Been sober for 18 months. I had my shit together, and that was so far from the truth.
So were you in denial, or did you know?
When I actually did ask for help, I knew I was fucked. There was no getting around the fact my life was a disaster, and that it was all because of me and my alcohol. Of course, I knew then I had a problem. I could not function a minute awake without a drink.
So do you think at that point you wanted to stop?
Before I hit my rock bottom, I wanted to stop more than anything in the world. With the physical effects of withdrawal that I'd had even from an hour or two of sleep, I physically could not do it. Full body tremors. At that point, there was no denying I needed to stop. I didn't care who knew it. I remember being at my in-laws' house, cooking breakfast for them, 6 o'clock in the morning, drinking, and they knew it.
Which leads me to the stigma of alcoholism. Did you ever want to open up, ask for help, or were you fearful being judged?
I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I needed help, and I wasn't fearful of being judged.
I've come to know you as a person of integrity. So how different were you when drinking?
I am a person of integrity now. Back then I had none. Didn't even know what the word meant. Lie, lie, lie. That's all I did.
So did you find yourself being sneaky or deceptive to cover your tracks your problematic drinking?
There were times that I was still hiding it. I knew how much I was drinking and I thought I was hiding it well. I lied to everybody I knew, my husband especially. When I got sober, we started going through the house and finding copious amounts of empty beer, liquor, whatever, from when I was trying to hide it. I mean, I basically had no integrity and I didn't care about myself, which in turn made me not care about anyone else. Somebody I never thought I would be.
And what about your personality? What impact did alcohol have on that?
Early on, I thought it did great things for my personality. You know, I was carefree and fun-loving and fun. The things that I thought that I wasn't, I thought alcohol did that for me.
What about towards the end? How did alcohol affect your personality then?
Toward the end and a lot of the years in the middle, I had no personality. I had no nothing. I shape-shifted myself to what I was supposed to be at that given moment, become whoever that person I was with wanted me to be. Pretty much completely changed me. And one of the things that I had to do in sobriety, pretty much any addict does, is we have to try to figure out who the fuck we are, because we have no idea. Alcohol or drugs have become our identity for so long. I always wanted to be that person that I knew was in my heart that I was supposed to be, who I was meant to be, but alcohol much destroyed that.
So did you ever find yourself becoming easily agitated, aggressive, impulsive, or erratic?
Agitated, aggressive, impulsive, erratic. That pretty much describes me and most every addict, alcoholic that I know.
In one sentence, how would you describe it?
Thrive in chaos. That's what my life was. It was complete chaos. Just a bitter person. That's how I was, alcohol or not.
With that, I'm sure alcohol led you to some embarrassing, horrendous moments.
Oh my word, girl. Embarrassing moment. If you could think of an embarrassing thing, I'm pretty sure that I did it. So many things I'm ashamed of, but you know, I can't go back and change them. But
sadly, none of us can change the past.
Probably the most embarrassing and humiliating experience that I ever had was I had been up drinking seriously for all day and night solid. My husband was traveling and I was going out to shopping and with a friend. I drank the entire time that we were out. So I'd pretty much been drinking for 24, 48 hours straight. We went to the Olive Garden and she went to the bathroom, and when she came out, I was out cold at the bar. I'd have an ambulance come get me. I had alcohol poisoning. This was just a little while after I had to stop working at the hospital where I did surgery for the doctor that I did when I hurt my back. Of course, they took me to the hospital, but I was, still employed there. I was just on temporary disability at the time. The first person I saw when I woke up was him. He was the first person.
I feel you, girl. That had to be mortifying.
And I can't believe that I picked up a drink after that, and I did. And that just shows you addiction right there.
I imagine the humiliation, overbearing.
I was ashamed, embarrassed from my friend, just humiliated, and I still, within days, started drinking again after I swore I would. The list of embarrassing things goes on and on.
Was this something you fast moved on from? Once it was done and dusted, what did your behavior gnaw away at your conscience?
Every time that I did something ridiculous or something I was ashamed of, it ate away at me, it made me sick, and I still had another drink. And that right there defines addiction.
And what about your self-esteem? How was that? What was it like at this time?
I had no self-esteem. Absolutely ashamed of myself every single day. One of the worst things about being in active addiction is how hard you are on yourself and how little you think of yourself. Thought so little of myself. It didn't really matter at that point what happened to me.
Did you ever make promises to stop drinking? And if so, how did they pan out?
Even after all of the nonsense and all of the shit I did, the embarrassing stuff and the stuff I was ashamed of, every time I said I was going to stop, I meant it. I meant it that I wanted to, and I didn't.
You must have felt you not only let down others, but yourself also. So you never thought that maybe you deserved to do this for you.
Getting to that place where you're able to put it down is so incredibly hard. And especially when you don't like yourself very much, to even think that you deserve something better.
Do you think you knew deep down that you wouldn't really be able to stop? Or did you truly believe that you were strong enough and you could and would?
Why I assumed I was ready or strong enough at that point to do it, but I meant it, but I wasn't ready or strong enough.
I assume this then led you to feeling even more down.
You're beating yourself up every minute of every day, trying to figure out what in the fuck is wrong with me that I can't stop. I'm stronger than this. whatever. So, every day. I'm ashamed of breaking promises. I was embarrassed of what I was doing, disgusted with myself. Why can this person have a drink and not be like me? I can't even stop when I know I have this terrible problem. Why can't I get to that place where, not that I'm able to drink, but that I can not drink and be fine? I really want to stop. I just couldn't do it.
Did you ever try detoxification? And is this even safe without medical monitoring?
So I had stopped drinking for 18 months prior to actually checking myself into rehab and getting sober the right way. And I say the right way because that was the right way for me. But I was in and out of the hospital, so I was extremely sick, and that's why I stopped drinking. I was what you call a dry drunk. I was completely miserable every day that I was dry during that time, and I knew I would drink again. And once my health improved, I did. Detoxing, medically detoxing, in my opinion, is very important for people, especially people are detoxing from certain things, or really anybody.
Detoxing couldn't be easy on your body.
It's extremely hard. Your body goes through so many changes. It's just not safe.
So the risks of detoxing are actually quite high.
If you are detoxing off benzodiazepines like Xanax or alcohol, it can be fatal if you're not doing medically. There's neurotransmitters in the brain that are affected from all the use of the alcohol. It's very possible that have a seizure and die. Hyperexcitability, that happens during the stages of detoxification. So stopping the drink is just part of the process that goes along with recovery.
So what would you consider the catalyst for you getting help?
Oh my gosh, Sharon, I was dying, and I knew it. Doctors had told me that. I had been told if you don't stop drinking, you will die. And that wasn't really it. It was just, that wasn't the biggest part of it. The biggest part of it was I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I believe you've loved and lost many during your recovery. This must be so hard. How has this impacted your own recovery?
I've been impacted on both sides. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I've lost dear people to me and even family to the disease of addiction. And it's so hard being on either end of the spectrum, being the addict or being the person trying to help that addict. You definitely don't want to be on either side. But if you are, the addict side can definitely get help, and so can the other people.
It must be devastating to watch someone you love go through this.
It's devastating to watch someone you love killing themselves. And in recovery, I've seen it far too often and far too close.
What can others do to help their loved ones struggling with addiction?
The thing about addiction is you can only do what you can do for someone that you care about. You can watch them destroying themselves, but you can't make them come to the decision to get better until they do.
Do you think that many people may assume that their family somehow is immune to this?
Addiction's everywhere. No one is immune to it. I'm sure it's hit close to home for a lot of people watching this. So, there is a solution. There is a fix. But it's not an easy fix, and you have to really want it.
If you or someone you know is struggling, you can reach out to Christy on her Facebook. You will find her under Christy Randall Strickland, or on Instagram under Strix9CS.
Losing someone to addiction that you love changes you, changes your world. I hope anyone seeing this that needs help gets it, because your loved ones don't want that. They really don't. They want you to get better, and you can.
If you're struggling with addiction or mental health issues, please know there is strength in asking for help. Reach out and find someone to talk to today. To wrap up episode 1, what advice could you give anyone living with addiction, whether directly or indirectly, who may feel there is no way out of the darkness?
I think the best advice I could give someone is to ask for help. If you think that you have a problem, don't be afraid to reach out to someone. Don't be afraid of being judged or of being shamed. I think the best advice I could give, reach out for help. Don't be afraid. If you think that you have a problem, you're not sure, but it's becoming an issue in your life, don't be afraid to ask for help. If we don't talk about these things, they are never going to get solved. And that comes from people being willing to admit, hey, I might have a problem.
Thanks, Christy. It's been an honor having you on my channel.
Sharon, I can't thank you enough for having me. You giving up your platform to let people talk about things that are really important to them and that might help someone else just from sharing their story is remarkable. I'm just so happy to be here, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It really is. It's an amazing thing you're doing, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Christy, You're amazing. Enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 coming next week. Christy's real raw account of her sobriety journey. Till next time, take care.
I see